Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. This is the Ochakde Show, a talk show where I interview entrepreneurs and inspiring individuals from all walks of life. Today, we have Mariah Olson. She's a co-founder and head of community and safety at Schoolhouse.world. Folks tuning in that have already seen the episode with Drew, the COO of Schoolhouse.world, you might be a little familiar with what Schoolhouse is. I'm actually wearing the hoodie right now. But Mariah, do you want to talk a little bit more about what Schoolhouse is?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me, Sachin. I'm really excited to be here. Long time coming. We've talked about this for months, so I'm really excited we can finally make it happen. And Schoolhouse is a nonprofit platform where anyone can volunteer to tutor people all over the world. It's mostly high schoolers, peer tutoring other high schoolers in topics like math, SAT prep, and we're kind of gradually expanding out to more and more topics. But yeah, that's kind of the basics of what it is.
So from the title of this video, we're going to be talking about community. And if you look up community, there's two Google definitions. The first one is a group of people living in the same place or having a particular characteristic in common. The second definition is a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. But what's your definition of community, and what does it mean to be the head of community?
So I think of community as just an environment where people have a sense of belonging, a sense of, purpose and kind of meaning and being there with these other people, and where people who share some interest or some passion can really come together around that interest or passion and really provide value to each other, and just help each other grow and make amazing connections along the way. And to me, what it means to lead a community is, I'll start with what it does not mean, which I think it can be easy to think of the community lead as like the hub of the community, like the person that everyone knows, everyone talks to, the person who's kind of the super connector. And I actually think of leading a community as much different from that. I think it's about creating that environment where people can successfully connect and successfully provide value to each other. I got to participate in On Deck Community Builders in their first cohort. And I think one thing that really stuck, one quote from that, or one term from that, that really stuck out to me was engineering serendipity. I think that is the role of a community builder. You're there to engineer a space where these connections can form that feel serendipitous, that feel almost like, whoa, it's like crazy that we got to connect over this thing. But as a community manager, you're really trying to build that space where those amazing serendipitous moments can happen, and you don't know exactly what's going to happen, but you're building the space for it to happen.
Wow, that was amazing. Yeah, this is going to be an amazing episode because we've known each other for so long. We've met in person. I've been waiting to do this. For people watching right now, why should they watch the full episode? What do you have to say to them?
I think we're going to have a lot of great conversations just about what it means to build community. And you're the one who has asked the questions, so maybe you're better equipped to answer, but really excited to share about these last 2 years at Schoolhouse because for me, it was a complete career switch, career shift. Before this, I was a data engineer, and it's just been such a wonderful last 2 years building up this nonprofit, and I feel like we're doing a lot of kind of interesting things to connect people to learn together in ways that haven't really been done before. So I think it'll be fun to get into kind of all these what that actually looks like, connecting the world through learning, which is Schoolhouse's mission.
Yeah, and I know my audience is a lot of high schoolers, and there's definitely a ton of opportunities for high schoolers at Schoolhouse. So that's also another reason. But so when like people think about like a startup or a company, it's mainly just like, okay, there's a team, there's a founder. Sometimes the founder is also the CEO, or there's a separate CEO. But what does it mean to like have a community, and why is a community important? Like, is a community just like the customers knowing each other, or what really is the community?
Yeah, I think community can really look different across, depending on the startup. Every community kind of has its own unique set of goals and purposes, I think. But I think specifically at Schoolhouse, the community was born out of two things. One, necessity, and two, just realizing how much we could really enrich each other's lives by getting to know each other more. All the volunteers at Schoolhouse, I think, are such amazing, passionate people who really care about helping others and who love to learn, who are very curious. And so I think, and they're also from all over the world. They're all ages, totally like different cultures, super diverse set of people being brought together around this common purpose of helping others learn. And I think when we realized, wow, this is such an amazing group of people, like it would just seem so obvious we needed to create ways for them to get to know each other as well. Because I feel like we can just really, inspire each other and help each other grow as people if we build those connections. But also the necessity part was, at the beginning of Schoolhouse, I was the only person who was full-time working on the project. It wasn't funded yet. I had left my job and I was kind of just hoping, crossing my fingers that this would work out. Obviously, as it started to pick up traction, I knew I couldn't do all of the things myself. So we started to recruit people to help with tutoring, and I realized I need a lot more help than just, with tutoring. Like, we need help with figuring out, how we're going to handle safety issues and how we're going to accept applications and how we're going to make sure the quality is all right. It started as a super scrappy project. And so as these volunteers started flooding into tutor, I think I realized we can be a lot more than that. Like, this is such an amazing, passionate group of people. We can go a lot further than just tutoring together. And so we started building out volunteer teams to work on different aspects of the Schoolhouse project. And I think that's where some of those early friendships and connections really got seeded and started to become the community that we have today.
Yes, I agree. The community at Schoolhouse is just on a different level. Like, so many different people from all walks of life, just all together with one purpose of helping others, with learners and tutors. It's just beautiful. Yeah. So I really like it. But you mentioned, as the co-founder of Schoolhouse, you mentioned that you left your job and you had your fingers crossed and you were hoping it was going to work out. Why did you take that risk? Because I know this is like a raging debate in entrepreneurship. Like, should you leave your job and try to do something, or should you just keep your day job, or what made you take that step?
It was really scary because this was at the beginning of the pandemic. This was March of 2020. And so, everyone's talking about, well, what's going to happen with the pandemic? Is the whole economy going to collapse? And I was working at a startup that was very profitable and a startup that felt very confident that we could make it through economic conflict. And so, like, leaving that position was genuinely scary. But it wasn't even a question for me, because I think my dream has always been to work in ed tech and to build something that can hopefully help people at scale someday. Help, open up opportunities for people at scale. And so, and I'd always really appreciated the work that Khan Academy had done, basically doing exactly that. And really my career dream was to get to work on something like Khan Academy or on Khan Academy. And so when the opportunity came up to work with Sal on a project like this, it was like that, yeah, there was no way I was ever going to turn it down. I didn't care what the economy looked like. I just felt like it was just such a special opportunity. And I feel to this day just incredibly beyond lucky to have had the opportunity to start working on it in the really early days. And, also just being in a very privileged position where I did have a fallback. Like in a worst case scenario, I had a family, I could live with them, like I had some savings. And I think knowing that one, this was really this had the potential to be the role of my dreams. And then two, knowing that I was in a position where I could have a fallback if I needed to. It was this can only be a learning experience in a worst case scenario. So it definitely was an easy decision.
I see. Yeah, you mentioned that you always wanted to do ed tech. Take me back to your teen years. Did you use Khan Academy yourself, or how did you find that passion for ed tech? And for people that might not even know what ed tech is, do you want to also explain that?
Sure. So I was actually homeschooled throughout all of my education until college. And so I used all of the free resources, and Khan Academy was definitely a big one of them. And I think the thing that really got me interested in ed tech was one, my family is just all really into education. Two of my sisters became teachers. My mom studied as a teacher. And so it was always a dinner table conversation, how do we fix the education system? Which is really funny looking back that at 8 years old, I was probably, in these conversations about the education system. But that definitely influenced it influenced me to think about, what are all these alternative ways we could think about education? And, in high school, exploring a lot of those different ways, having very there's certain classes I kind of created for myself that were just very project-based, which was, I learned so much more in a project-based setting than I did in, a typical reading a textbook and memorizing things setting. And so I think through homeschooling, I started to realize the amazing opportunities there are to think about education in different ways. And just the way that technology has not been technology has come so far and education has mostly stayed the same. And there's so many opportunities to help people at scale. And I think what really kind of pushed it over the edge for me was my brother. When he was in college, he was very entrepreneurial, and he started a iPhone app design business. It started with him. He made an iPhone app for tracking your GPA, and it won an Apple Design Award. And so he was like, oh, this could become something. So he decided to quit college and start this company where he and my dad and a few of their employees would work together to figure out kind of a really great playbook for designing iPhone apps. And I got to be involved in that when I was in high school and learn a lot of the principles of good user experience design. And I read a lot about user experience design, and I realized that there was this fundamental kind of disconnect between the world of education and the world of user experience design. Because one of the first principles you learn when you get into user experience design is the user is never wrong. Have you heard that before? I'm curious. Yeah. So it's you read that in every good user, every good UX designer will tell you that. If someone's struggling to use your app, that's your problem. You got to make the app better. But in education, the user is always wrong. If they mess up, if they struggle on a test, if they struggle to figure out, education is really just a complex system to help you grow. It's but it's designed in the same way that an app experience is designed, an educational experience is designed. And if it's failing you, somehow it's your fault rather than, the fault of the system. And And I feel like my dream, as I started to realize that, was to someday create a world, and I obviously couldn't do it by myself, but someday live in a world and help build that world where like we really hold the system fully accountable for education, and everyone has access to an education system where it's foolproof and it's mastery based, so that like you always have the opportunity to succeed. Like there's just, fallbacks, there's ways to, adjust the learning experience so that if you're struggling, the experience changes to help you struggle less, instead of just giving you the same thing over and over again and you fail more and more. And so this is a long-winded answer to your question, but I think that kind of learning about UX design and then my family's passion for education kind of culminated to where when I was like in 11th grade, I knew like, this is what I want to do for my career. Like, I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't know what I'm doing in ed tech. I don't know if I want to be a designer or, a project manager or, a computer scientist, but this is what I want to do. And I'll just explore it from different angles. But at the end of the day, like, this is what I want to work on. Yeah.
Yeah, I think knowing that at 11th grade is like the most powerful thing in my opinion, because for me, it was like, I started in elementary school, like selling candy and toys. But then after, when I got older, I realized like, I'm just going to start a company and see how it goes. Then I figured out that I'm going to probably do it in like the wellness sort of space. So That's also what I decided. And I'm going to be in 11th grade next year. So similar story, but
a few steps ahead.
Yeah. Anyways, I need to get your brother on the show. That's a really cool story. And then we know that Schoolhouse is a nonprofit and it is free. I asked this to Drew as well. Do you think that education should be 100% free? What are your thoughts on that?
I can't imagine how we can make education less than 100% free and still give everyone the same opportunities. I feel like education should be an equalizer. It should be something that gives people are born into different situations, and there's nothing we can do to change a situation someone is born into other than like very big systemic changes that is going to take a very, very long time. But everyone, hopefully, the majority of people have some experience with education. And I feel like making sure that experience is a level playing field for everyone is, I think, one of the most low hanging fruit we can look at in terms of making sure everyone has the opportunity to progress in their life and to kind of self-actualize and become the person they want to become. So I think as long as some people are paying to get a better experience than others, education is like the opposite of an equalizer. Failing to think of what word that would be, but I think in an ideal world, yes, everyone would be able to have access to a really great educational experience for free.
This is probably, yeah, I'm not just saying this because we're doing the interview, but this is probably one of the best episodes so far. I'm learning so much just the beginnings of the episode. But let's talk about the challenges that Schoolhouse faced in its early days. Nothing ever starts perfect. There's always going to be challenges. You have to overcome them. So what were some of the challenges that Schoolhouse faced, and how did you and the team overcome them?
I think the first challenge was we had very little time and very little resources. So I think at the very beginning of Schoolhouse, before we started to get funding and before we realized just how long lasting this pandemic would be, there was just an extreme sense of urgency. Because, it felt like, maybe in March of 2020, we were thinking, oh, maybe the pandemic could last up to 2 months. That would be crazy. Like, we had no idea what was the time window within which we needed to really get our act together so that we could get off the ground and start to have an impact while the pandemic was still happening. Because I think we realized like there was so much opportunity to kind of come to the surface during the pandemic when remote learning was all of a sudden such a big deal. And everyone's talking about remote learning. So we needed to take advantage of the opportunity that like remote learning was becoming a thing and become part of that thing. And then of course there was also the sense of urgency around, there are just so many people who need help right now, who are struggling, who just have very, very limited access to the help they need to get through this pandemic. And so because of those two things, we just wanted to move as fast as we could. And that's where the volunteer teams really came in, because I just had limits myself. And I think it was so amazing to see how different people from around the world came together to figure out some of the early problems at Schoolhouse. We had professors from, we had a professor from the UK. I think you know James, who's amazing. We had some teachers.
We had
sorry?
We had Tim.
Yep. Yeah. And then, I don't know if you were there when Mason was there, Mason Volanto as well, who had a lot of experience doing virtual tutoring already, because that was his main business. And he jumped in and wanted to help us figure out how to make that free, which was, not self-serving at all. It was like really, really generous of him to spend his time doing that. And just such an amazing group. And then there was high schoolers, there was college students, there was, full-time software engineers who just wanted to help. And so I think the biggest challenge was figuring out how to help channel all of this amazing energy into the right place, into the right places. There's a lot of different places, and just kind of keep up the pace of the project so that we could, move as fast as we could without sacrificing, of course, safety and quality, and making sure like people were, having a good experience. So yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge, multifaceted, but really basically just helping people kind of figuring out how to prioritize given the time constraints, and then figuring out how to create the right structures and the right, management plan to channel all these amazing volunteers' energy into getting these actual work things done, which was very, very difficult, because volunteers can sometimes have random life things come up, or work gets really hard, or school gets really hard, and they disappear. And then what happens? You have to really think through how to kind of manage all of those potential things that can happen. And I think it took us probably a good year before we really figured that out. But I think we did just enough to get by. And there was definitely a lot of mistakes that I made that I had to learn from in trying to facilitate all of that. But I think now we're in a much better place with kind of the volunteer team structure that we have. And I feel like it's amazing to see just how amazing and powerful our volunteer teams are now.
Yeah, you were talking about the diversity of all the different tutors. So pretty much for people watching, listening, I highly encourage you to become a tutor or a learner, because anyone really can. It's not like you have to be a high schooler or you have to still be in school. Like, anyone can do it. So, and quite frankly, you feel good when you teach someone else and you learn more yourself. So it's definitely worth it. But Mariah, let's talk about your favorite moment at Schoolhouse.
Oh, it's always so hard for me to answer this question because, it's been over 2 years now since the project first kicked off, and there's just been so many moments that, I was there and then I just took a step back mentally and was like, I cannot believe I'm here. I can't believe this is happening right now. And I think there's been so many of those moments just because like being able to connect people from around the world to learn together and to help each other is just like such a beautiful thing. Like, there's just so many moments where I'm just like, this is just so cool. And like, when I see a tutor who came in as a learner and then someone helped them and then they're now giving back to others. Every time I hear a story like that, it just like makes my heart so full. But I think if I had to choose one moment as a favorite moment, I think it would still be Schoolhouse's first birthday party. We basically had a Zoom call with a lot of the volunteers who'd been, who'd helped build Schoolhouse from the ground up. And, still very early days, didn't know what was going to come next. But just being able to step back, because everything was moving at such a fast pace, since Schoolhouse got started. And I didn't have a lot of time to sit back and reflect on, what we'd built and, really think about the people, who we were helping and hearing their stories and really soaking that in. Of course, thinking about the people who were helping, but usually thinking about like the negative side of like, oh, like this part of the experience really needs to be better, or like we need to fix this. But I think that moment was just so cool, being in this call with all the volunteers from around the world who'd helped make this happen. And we even got to bring in Nader and Leo from Long Beach, who helped us with the initial pilot. I think we had Shashir there, who I worked with really closely to build kind of the first scrappy version of Schoolhouse on a Coda doc. And just having all of those amazing people in the room and getting to reflect on all the stories and everything that happened was just a really, really special moment for me. I think I'll definitely never forget that call.
Very wholesome stuff. I love it. That's great.
It's always a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Make sure to subscribe to the show and check out Schoolhouse.world. And you could become a learner or you could become a tutor. You can check it out and have fun with it. But yeah, thank you. Bye.